Hey now, it's Brace for Impact, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert, and I'm going solo on that ass, but it's still the same. We're talking TNA wrestling, and right off the bat, I got to apologize. For my audio quality. I have no idea what happened, but before I recorded Brace for Impact, the first Q&A yesterday, my microphone just gave up on me, and out of nowhere. So it was plugged in. It says it's plugged in. I selected it and automatically the software just went back to the default mic. And so I recorded the entire show not knowing that I was just talking into my computer. And so I've been sitting here for 20 minutes and I only have a small window of time to be able to record this. And I restarted my computer 2 or 3 times to get this microphone to work, and the StreamYard software just won't select it. So I even went to GarageBand. I was like, okay, well, I'll go old school and I'll record GarageBand. Well, it's not working through there either, so there's something going on with my mic. So I do apologize for the audio quality. I do try to have a pretty decent audio quality on the show. I've always had a pretty good mic, so that sucks. Sorry guys about that. But yes, this is the Brace for Impact Q&A part 2. I am back. For those of you that listened to the part 1, I was interrupted by my child at the end of the show, and so I had to cut it off because I was single dad yesterday morning, and everybody's asleep. Mom is home, and baby is home, and daughter is obviously home, and everybody's asleep right now. It's 9 p.m. and we're kind of sneaking in naps wherever we can. I actually just woke up from a nap, and I woke up, and then my daughter needed to go down, so I went and laid in her room for a little bit. She's asleep. My wife said, I'm going to go to sleep too. I was like, okay, well, I just had a nap. So it's been a rough one, man, because this kid likes to stay up all night. So like I said, I only have a small window of time to get this done. I still have to finish Bad Blood, WWE Bad Blood. I was watching that yesterday, and I did not get to finish the last 2 matches. So I'm going to check that out and try to knock out a Bad Blood recap for everybody and talk about some of the news. Probably make it more of a WWE-centric show since they had a lot of news this weekend. But why are we here? Well, this is the Q&A part 2. I wanted to save BQ's question for last. Now, BQ went on his YouTube. He also did a Q&A. I have yet to listen to it. I will get to that probably tomorrow. But he submitted a question to me, and I really thought it was a great question for our audience and for what we like to do here. He said, what are TNA's strengths and weaknesses? And I was like, damn, that's a good question, because I was like, it's actually a very complicated question if you think about it. And I did a paper for my MBA last semester, and I had to provide a SWOT analysis for a specific company. It had to be a Fortune 500 company. And I SWOT, if you guys know what SWOT means, it is strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's what SWOT analysis is. So I did a SWOT analysis for a Fortune 500 company that's publicly traded, and submitted that. And I was like, so when BQ asked that question, it got my brain activated. It's like, well, why, they have lots of strengths and lots of weaknesses, but let's go ahead and talk about the opportunities that they have as well and the threats to their company. I think that would make for an interesting topic. And I wanted to go live with you guys, but I don't know when I'm going to get to record this. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do it now and knock it out. So if you guys are listening to this, drop a comment here on the Patreon. And thank you for being subscribers. I appreciate it. Drop a comment in the thread. Identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that I may have missed. Or if I got something wrong, let me know that too. You guys are always pretty good about correcting me. But so SWOTs, they help organizations assess internal and external factors that impact performance, and they're able to plan accordingly. And for TNA Wrestling, this tool can help identify key areas where the company can grow and respond to challenges within the professional wrestling industry. So let's go ahead and get to strength number 1. And the strength number 1 is TNA has a loyal fan base. They have actually retained some of their hardest of hardcore fans from their peak and have brought them along with them through the peaks and the valleys. And from the depths of hell on the Pursuit Network, and through mediocrity for the last bunch of years as far as crowds and ratings and pay-per-views, to 2024 where they really have a lot of momentum. That hardcore audience has stuck with them through thick and thin, and I think I think that's the edge that they have over other small promotions like MLW and NWA and places like that, is because they have that, right? NWA and MLW, they don't really have that. They don't have like a group of people on social media, or a group of people that are buying every pay-per-view and paying pretty decent ticket prices to go sit front row at every show. As far as I can tell, they don't have that. In fact, some of the people that go to those shows are the hardcore TNA fans. They like to just support smaller promotions, but those guys would probably say that TNA is their favorite. And I think that's awesome. And then there's a lot of people that really liked TNA, but once they lost all their talent in 2014, 2015, on into 2017, and then when Scott D'Amore and Don Callis took over, and they really just slashed the budget big time. And Bobby Lashley left, and Drew Galloway left, and Eric Young left. All these people just took off. A lot of people remember those years, and then when the Hardys left too, that was a big blow to the company. But a lot of people remember those years, and have been waiting for Impact or TNA to do something to get their attention again, to get them back on board. And I think some of those people have actually recently come back. It doesn't reflect that in the ratings. It does reflect it in the ticket sales and the pay-per-view buys, though. There's a group of wrestling fans that actually really want TNA to succeed, and they're willing to support TNA should TNA be good, right, and do things that are interesting. And they've been able to do that this year, and it's shown because people have come back. Most of the credit's going to go to the NXT partnership, and I think that's fair. But a lot of the credit goes to the talents that have been able to go over to NXT television and get themselves over, and to bring those people back with them that remember when TNA was a kind of a big deal. So I think their biggest strength right now lies with their hardcore audience, their loyal fan base, and the people that support them through thick and thin. They're a crazy, crazy bunch, and a lot of them listen to the show, and I greatly appreciate them, and I love them dearly. So strength number one is the loyal fan base. Strength number two is the variety and flexibility of the way that they do their contracts. And I'm going to bring this up in one of the other areas too, but I think that it's very much a strength. They're able to get a guy like Nick Nemeth, who was coming off of WWE TV. He, if he were to become a free agent in 2019, he very likely would have been one of the top performers in AEW. Okay, he was doing he would want to do the types of matches that they like, and he was always a guy that everybody thought was being misused in WWE. And those are the types of people that Tony Khan were looking for, like really good wrestlers that were getting mistreated in WWE, that the fans would really get behind. And there was a time that people were really getting behind Nick Nemeth. And but then he re-signed with WWE, and then they continued to abuse him, and everybody just stopped caring. And so but now that he's been in TNA, he's still very good. He really is. We forgot how good this guy was, right? And because they don't have to sign someone to a long-term deal. They can do handshake deals. They can do, hey, we'll get you for X amount of dates over this, 6 month or whatever. We'll do rollover deals every 6 months. We'll do 3-month deals. We'll do no deals at all. Just, what's your independent rate? Okay, we'll keep booking you, and because they're able to do that, they're able to get a guy like Nick Nemeth, who was coming off of working in the same company for 20 years. And the only way he's going to sign another contract is if it's for a big money deal. And he would only be able to get that from AEW or WWE. So he's here in TNA, and he's actually doing very well for himself. And maybe that'll parlay that into a long-term contract. But until then, TNA's flexibility of contracts, it makes it so where a guy like Nick Nemeth is actually going to kind of want to come work here. Same with Mustafa Ali. They've been using Matt Cardona for years under that same premise, under that same model, and I'm going to mention him again a little bit later. So the flexibility of their contracts, they do short-term, long-term, no contract at all. They the variety of which they do actually makes it to where they're able to get a lot of different types of unique performers from all different walks of life and different backgrounds. And which brings me to my next strength is talent variety. They have a rich history of showcasing a mix of veteran talent, indie stars, and rising prospects. And it often appeals to people, that are seeking diversity in their programming. They I think for the most part they do a good job with it. I do wish that guys like the ABC and the Rascals and obviously Speedball and other guys were not consistently seen as mid-carders, in favor of the WWE fireds, the 40-year-old guys coming from WWE TV taking spots. I wish those guys would get pushed. And then sometimes we see those guys not get pushed here, and then they go to another company, and then they actually get pushed. And then we see, okay, well, that's what they could have been here, and you guys kind of screwed the pooch on that one. So I do wish there was better sometimes, but I still like the variety of the talent. And the creative freedom. One of the strengths of TNA is one of their weaknesses. They're just not on everybody's radar, which means they can kind of get away with taking some chances with some of their characters. And sometimes they flop right on their ass. Sometimes it's really, really bad. And then other times it's actually really, really good. And the really, really bad doesn't really get a lot of attention because nobody's really watching. It's like, it's not really their TV. Hardly anybody watches the TV show, right? So when they are taking a big risk on a character, they're taking a big risk on a match concept, and it completely flops, it's really only a handful of people that really notice it. But if they take a risk and it succeeds, like a Joe Hendry, which not a big risk, he's been around for a long time, but they really, made him a prominent star, and it's paid off. And no other company was willing to make him a prominent star. TNA has been, and it's paying off. Well, then now people are taking notice. So not a lot of people remember a lot of the crappier stuff that they've done, like Wrestle House and and the Thanksgiving show that they would do, the IPWF and all that crap. So I think that is another one of their strengths. And then their last strength is just their branding and innovative match concepts, and just the very uniquely TNA branded concepts that they have, such as the Ultimate X match, such as the Knockouts division, the X division. I think those three types of branding that they have are very uniquely TNA. And somebody actually posted on Twitter a couple days ago, was like, "Hey, Tony Khan, why don't you just steal Ultimate X?" And he said, "F TNA, just steal it." And I was like, I'm surprised he hasn't. I'm surprised NXT has not had an Ultimate X match, because they have also stolen a lot from TNA. But that is one of those concepts that's very uniquely TNA. You can only get that match in TNA. And I am really shocked that WWE or AEW hasn't made a version of the Ultimate X match, obviously with a different name, because I'm sure TNA owns the copyright to Ultimate X and X Division. But I'm surprised that nobody's ever taken it. So that, it's one of those places that only can happen in TNA, or one of the matches that can only happen in TNA. And that makes TNA unique, right? They have the King of the Mountain match, which everybody kind of pokes fun at. I've always kind of enjoyed that match, but everybody pokes fun at the match. Monsters Ball, which is just a hardcore match, but it's Monsters Ball, right? And they have these uniquely branded matches and uniquely branded events and ideas and concepts, and and I'm obviously a fan of, instead of just calling them women, calling them knockouts. I know for a while people were like, it's the same as Divas. Well, but TNA has always put their women's division up until recently on a pedestal, and so calling them knockouts was very much like a compliment. And the women in that division actually like the branding. It's unique. Instead of calling them the women's champions, the knockouts champion, right? instead of calling it a cruiserweight champion, it's the X Division champion. And then they have their catchphrases and things like that. So I think that is probably the first strength being their loyal fan base, and their fifth strength being just the TNA uniquely branded ideas, concepts, and matches and divisions. I think that those are the two biggest strengths with the company. Weaknesses. Well, the biggest weakness for TNA is past brand stigma. TNA left a bad taste in everybody's mouth coming out of the Hulk Hogan Bischoff era, and all the chaos under the Dixie Carter regime through the sale to Anthem, and then the different losing TV deals, from losing Spike to Destination America. People forget about that one. Getting kicked off of Pop TV, going to Pursuit, now being on Access. Just everybody associates TNA with chaos, and there's a while I said there was a large group of people out there that want to give TNA a chance and they're always willing to come back and check it out, there's probably an even bigger wrestling audience out there that will just never give the company back again. Give them another chance again. That's absolutely true, and it's unfortunate. Like there's a big rumored match coming up at Bound for Glory that would actually appeal to every single AEW fan, but because the letters TNA are in front of it, they're not gonna give it the time of day. It's like, oh, it's TNA, I'm not watching it. That's just the way it is, and they're probably never gonna come from under that. It's just never gonna happen, and that sucks. But you know what? That's just the way it is. I think that's also been hindering them from getting out of the TV deal. It's been hindering them from doing a lot of different types of business. As strong as that TNA brand name is, there's also carries with it a past brand stigma that they have really, really struggled to get out from under. Next would be limited financial resources. Compared to WWE or AEW, TNA, they operate on a much smaller budget, limiting their ability to compete in terms of talent acquisition, production quality, marketing, things like that. They will tell you, Anthem will tell you they're $1 billion company, and Anthem will, put rumors out there that they were in negotiations with Will Ospreay and CM Punk and Chris Jericho. And there's a reason why they've not been able to land any of those talents, is because they just don't have the financial resources to be able to come through on a deal. I mean, that's the God's honest truth. And I think a lot of people just don't really want to admit that. They're like, oh, well, Anthem has, all these TV networks, and they have these movie studios, and they have all this and that. Well, okay. Well, but look at the show compared to the other shows and tell me who has the most money, right? Like they just don't have the money to compete with those other companies. They just don't. Now, unless they were willing to get like some big time investor, like the Khan family, right? Somebody like that, and put actual dollars into production and put actual dollars into talent acquisition, they could probably, maybe get themselves on a bigger network, but they just don't have it right now. And it's the chicken or the egg, philosophy. It's like, should we put financial resources now and in hopes of getting a TV deal, or do we wait to get the TV deal? I don't think the TV deal is ever coming unless you actually put financial resources into the company and make it look like something that somebody would want to, pay money for, right? Now, like I said, last couple months, I think the production quality has been pretty good. So maybe they can keep that up. But again, they just don't have like the big time stars, and it's because they just can't afford them, right? Or weakness number 3, if it's not that they can't afford them, they just don't have the balls to afford them. Maybe they do have the money. So weakness number 3 is they don't have any balls. And they have proven that time and time again. They actually proved that here recently. Now, God bless them, because, having to move their Spartanburg tapings multiple times and ultimately canceling, that is a difficult thing to do, difficult thing to navigate. I completely understand that. And that totally sucked. They moved it to Nashville. All of us, TNA supporters and podcasters and fans alike, we were saying, well, it would be great, for the first time in forever, why don't you guys just go live on Thursday night from Skyway Studios? You guys have gone live there before because they've done live pay-per-views there before. So we know that they can go live, right? It's not that they don't have the ability. They have the ability. It's whether or not they want to take that financial risk, right? Well, they decided to go ahead and record starting on Wednesday, and then they were recording on Thursday. So they were just taping. Okay, we're like, okay, well, we assumed that the shows that they taped on Wednesday were going to be able to be aired on Thursday. But no, they didn't want to spend the money to get the show turned around in time, right? I for the life of me, I don't understand. So I'm just assuming that they just, they're just unwilling to do it. Maybe it cost them a couple extra bucks and they didn't want to do that. So company lacks balls. When they were, there was word out there that they were in negotiation with CM Punk. I said, even if they have the financial resources, they don't have the balls to make that deal because you're taking a huge financial risk. And, say what you want about this company, the assets that they purchase are usually distressed assets that need to be turned around, right? They're not spending money on anything that's like thriving. And so if you're buying CM Punk, he's not going to come for a dollar less than what he feels like he's worth. And that's multiple millions of dollars a year, right? So if they have the money and they talk to the guy, they never had the balls to close that deal. Same with Mercedes Moné. They never had the balls to close that deal. They had been talking with her before and they never closed it. Chris Jericho, people always cite, well, they were talking with Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho used them to get money out of Tony Khan. Okay. They were never in that negotiation because they didn't have the balls to close that deal. Braun Strowman, they couldn't get it over the finish line, right? They leaked that he was coming and it was going to be Braun for Glory. They leaked it. Scott D'Amore actively leaked that to Mike Johnson, and Anthem didn't have the balls to get it done. They didn't want to take the financial risk, right? And that's what I mean. They're too risk averse to get some of these deals done. I was I talked about not this past Thursday, obviously, because we were off, but the previous Thursday about AJ Styles potentially becoming a free agent. I didn't even mention TNA and where I thought he could land, despite the fact that he has the history of TNA. It's only AEW because TNA, they don't have the balls to get that deal done. They don't. They would have to be willing to give up a lot to make that happen, and they're just not willing to do it. There's not. People are like, oh, well, maybe they're good businessmen. Well, we're not. I mean, are they really? Are they really? You got to take some risks. You got to take some big swings out there if you really want to cement yourself as a solid number 3. And if you really want to get yourself onto a bigger television network and onto a bigger distribution platform, you got to be willing to take some risks. And as of right now, I just have not seen that they're willing to take those big risks and make those big swings. They just haven't been. And then my next one is inconsistent storylines. It's been a lot of their storytelling is very paint by numbers. There's no real, nobody can really point to me where there's like a super hot angle that's happened this year. There really hasn't been. Joe Hendry has gotten hot and has had momentum, but there's never really been a ton of heat around him. I think they were trying with the Frankie thing and then they just screwed that up, right? I would say the best probable story that they had all year was Speedball versus Mustafa Ali, and I get the feeling that was Mustafa Ali doing that story and setting it up to Slammiversary. And really that was a 2-month storyline and it had one match. So there has not really been any big time long-term storyline with, good heat since the Josh Alexander Moose story. And to a lesser extent, Josh Alexander and Bully Ray, I thought it ended up being pretty good. There hasn't really been any good, heated storylines in the company. The big feud of the year has been Dolph Ziggler or Nick Nemeth and Moose. And really, what was it? After Hard to Kill, Nick Nemeth shows up, hits the Danger Zone, and then they forget about it for a little bit, and then they come back to it in April, and he loses the match, and then they forget about it for a little bit, and then he wins in a 6-way, and then they just did the match, and it was a great match, don't get me wrong, and he won, but there wasn't really a ton of heat there. There just wasn't. There was no real storyline. There was no real if the whole play was to tell the story of Nick Nemeth overcoming his past in WWE to become a world champion again, overcoming his struggles and failures over the years, they didn't really do a great job of telling that story from January to July. They did. They have not done a great job of telling the story of Joe Hendry coming from mediocrity and rising. They mention it sometimes, but they don't really discuss like how he's getting there. NXT did a good job with the video package on him. It was way better than anything that TNA's done. And so I just don't think they have it in them. They are just kind of void of creativity at this point. So they're just doing paint by numbers booking. Okay, this person beats this person, and then this person's gonna get a title shot, and then this person's gonna win a couple matches. And sometimes when they win a couple matches, this person's gonna win a multiple person match, and then they'll be the next champion. And then they'll attack them after a match, and then it's like wash, rinse, repeat. Just do it kind of over and over again. They don't have anything like Swerve and Hangman, right? Like where they're going into, they're doing home invasions and shit. they just don't have that type of creativity. They just don't. Even though like this is like if any company should be creative, it should be this company because they have to be more creative than the other companies to get people's attention. And the fact of the matter is, because they're a small promotion, they should be taking more creative risks, not magic and voodoo, Gresham, not that, but just creative risks and really kind of go above and beyond to be a little bit out there to get people's attention, have crazy storylines and badass fucking matches. That's all people want out of this company, from their men, from their women, and from their X division, and from their tag teams. That's all that they want. And then another weakness is, because of the limited financial resources, it's been hard to, it has been difficult to sign talent, but they keep the roster very small and thin at times. And because of, like I said, one of the strengths is the flexibility of the contracts. And I think that the roster turnover to an extent can be good. I think people are always kind of waiting for their favorite star to leave. And every time they lose a couple matches, we assume that they're gone, right? We're already predicting Josh is leaving, and he's been here for a long time. But we just saw Mustafa Ali leave. Like every time we get attached to a character, they just go somewhere else because TNA is not really a destination for a lot of people. It's a transition home. It's a halfway house, right? It's like they get out of WWE prison and they come and hang out in TNA for a little bit, and they're just hoping to either go back or get that contract from AEW. In fact, we just saw Mustafa Ali at All In, like in the crowd, trying to get some attention, and hopefully Tony Khan will pay attention to him. Matt Cardona came out and said, "I'm surprised no one's offered me a contract from AEW or WWE." It's like, brother, you've been working for TNA for 4 years. It's like just off and on. And he's like, I like being a free agent. I don't want to sign a contract. He wants to sign a contract. He just doesn't want to sign a contract with TNA. He wants to sign a contract with WWE or AEW, right? So that is another. It's like talent don't really want to be here long term unless they're your typical Moose and Eddie Edwards guys that have just really gotten comfortable in the company. Josh has been one of those guys too, and I hope he doesn't. I hope he doesn't leave. I think Steve Macklin might end up being another one, but just kind of roster instability is another weakness, I would say. Okay, opportunities. I think that there are a lot of opportunities. I think with the growth that they've had this year and the momentum that they've had this year at the box office and at pay-per-view, I think now is the time, and the production quality upgrades, if they're willing to spend on talent, if they're willing to have a little bit of balls, and they're willing to move their operation to Full Sail University, I think there really is an opportunity for them to get a television deal. Look, AEW just got a really good deal from WBD, and they're probably going to get on Fox. Now, some people could look at that and say, well, you're just removing more channels from, removing more channels from TNA to be able to be on those channels. But no, what I look at that as kind of an opportunity. It's like, look, pro wrestling is cheap programming that can endure, and you can get good quality content 52 weeks a year, and the TV networks won't really have to break the bank for it. It is stable, sustainable programming that you can have on your network. It could be an anchor, and it can be, get people. It'll probably get your biggest audience, and then you can get them to watch the other shows that can actually sell advertising, right? Because TNA or pro wrestling doesn't really do really well in advertising. So um, I think that now they have an opportunity. It's like right in front of their faces, whether or not they're willing to have the balls to take it, to leave Access TV behind and move to a bigger partner, both on broadcast or whatever, cable and streaming, right? To get a deal, not to the financial deal that AEW has. I don't think that's not even a possibility at this point. But if they could go to a company that also has a streaming service, and to be able to sell their live air and streaming rights to the same company, and then to get all of their pay-per-views onto a streaming service like I'm just tossing, like the Paramount or Hulu or so like WWE left Hulu. I think that's an opportunity for TNA, right? Because AEW is all in with Max. You have Hulu, you have ESPN Plus, Disney's probably off the table. You have Paramount Plus. Those streaming services need sustainable programming that people will come back to 52 weeks a year. I think the TNA could be one of those things. I am a believer in that. And then just their digital growth and streaming altogether, I think they have an opportunity right now. Like if they don't sell their streaming rights, I think they have an opportunity to continue to grow TNA Plus, because I feel like TNA Plus has been a really, it's probably been the best thing that they've done all year, to be honest with you, is moving their streaming platform over to an Endeavor platform. And I think they can actually continue to grow that. I think ultimately moving everything under one price instead of selling pay-per-views is probably the way to go for them. But it's probably not in the cards because they've actually done pretty well with two of their pay-per-views this year. Two, Rebellion didn't do well, but Slammiversary did great, and Hard to Kill is their greatest ever. So, maybe they won't do that, but I do think that there's, there's opportunities there. More opportunities. I think they have more opportunities to work with more companies. We just saw the Rascals win the GLEAT Tag Team Championships, and I think that's cool. Like I'll be honest, I never fucking watched GLEAT before, but they were working with New Japan Pro Wrestling. It appears that relationship is over, even though Kushida still works there. Hold on, swig of water for Kushida. But I think they could go back into Japan and start working with New Japan or Noah or All Japan or something like that, and start co-promoting again. It seems like right now they're just super focused on this WWE NXT partnership, and it's only really netted them some talent from NXT, and it's been a positive for them. But I think as we head into 2025, I think that they're going to want to start bringing back stars from AAA and stars from Japan as well. So I think there's more cross-promotional collaborations would be a good thing for them. Untapped international markets. I think they need to get back in. There's an opportunity for them to make some real money in the UK. WWE all over the world has moved all of their stuff off of all of their TV platforms around the world, and it's all on Netflix. Okay. The only channel that has anything WWE that is not from Netflix are CW and USA, and that's in the United States. SmackDown and NXT is also on Netflix internationally, right? All the pay-per-views on Netflix internationally. So they have left a void internationally in the UK on TNT Sports. I cannot remember the name of the stations that they're on in Canada, but those stations in Canada, I think it might be TSN or Sportsnet, I can't remember. But there's a void there. 76 in India. So I think that there's international markets that WWE has left behind that they could probably pick up some of the pieces of some. And I know AEW is going to as well, but AEW has already got these deals with Max and WBD, and WBD has, and TNA is on to some WBD stations around the world. So I think AEW might not take some of these deals, and I think that's going to, create an opportunity for TNA to make a little bit of cash. But I also think they need to take live events into some of these markets. They need to take a live event back into the UK, right? I thought Bound for Glory was going to be in the UK, and they just didn't go. They could do a co-joined event with New Japan in Japan. I think they should do that, right? I think there is a market for it. Even not New Japan. New Japan's like so embedded with AEW at this point. I would really like to see TNA work with All Japan or work with Noah. I think that would be cool, right? I think they could be able to do that. Um, so yeah, but I see lots of opportunities, especially with the momentum that they have right now. And again, I'm going to say it: 5 for 25. They need to book a 5,000 seat arena in 2025. I think they can do it. But again, takes balls. One of the weaknesses, they got no balls. Threats, talent loss is their biggest threat. AEW and WWE are embedded in a war, a pissing contest, even with their fan bases. Their fan bases are starting to drag TNA into this war. And so the wrestling war between WWE and AEW, as far as I'm concerned, is the biggest threat to their company, because as these contracts get inflated and TNA continues to not want to spend money on those contracts, it's going to it's really going to hurt them, because WWE and AEW are going to come after their talent, and they have been for years. So this is not like a new thing. Like Jordan Grace already knows heading to the WWE. Joe Hendry is probably next. Eddie and Moose are safe. Josh Alexander, borderline. But Masha Slamovich, are getting ready to heat her up. I think she's again, she shouldn't want that money. I'm shocked that ABC re-signed. I just assumed that NXT or AEW would be calling for those guys. The WWE is going to want the Rascals back. They never really had Miguel, but they had Zach Wentz, and Zach Wentz has done a great job. Speedball Mike Bailey, I think his contract comes up at the end of the year, and AEW is probably going to want him. So, they are the third largest company in North America, and they're a distant number three by a lot. And because of that, every time I mentioned the flexibility of the contracts, and that is a positive at some point. But they're coming due so quickly, and they're constantly having to renegotiate these contracts. And the moment WWE or AEW comes calling, they're going to leave. That's just the way it is. And as far as I'm concerned, the second, there's, intense competition I had a bad reputation. That was more of weaknesses. I think the biggest threat to TNA is the saturated market. And if AEW does get a third show on Fox, it's going to even knock them further and further down, because WWE has 3 primetime shows. And AEW already has 3 shows. Rampage is getting canceled. So let's say they got 2 for now, and they're going to get a third in 2025, all in prime time. So that's 6 primetime wrestling shows right now. And then, WWE and AEW are running at least one pay-per-view style, whether it be PLE or pay-per-view, whatever you want to call it, per month. And that is greatly going to be cutting into TNA's market share, right? And so if AEW gets this third primetime show, man, it becomes harder and harder for wrestling fans to want to, venture outside of either their bubble in AEW, their WWE bubble, to then go down to the TNA bubble to pick up another show. That becomes very, very difficult. So as far as I'm concerned, the biggest threat to TNA is the saturated market. And, of course, the war between AEW and WWE. But anyway, hey, that was the SWOT analysis. I really appreciate you. If you guys are listening to this, please, in the comments on Patreon, let me know what you think. What did I get wrong? Did I miss a strength? Did I miss a weakness? Did I go too far? Let me know. And again, I'm trying to get this damn microphone fixed, so I do apologize for the audio quality. But I do my very best. I will try to be back tomorrow with a Bad Blood reaction show. But that is going to do it for me this time on Brace for Impact Q&A Part 2. And until next time, mahalo.